Hi guys, welcome to Cheap to Charming episode 1. Today we're going to introduce the concept and start working on this. So this is where we take this cheap gun. This is a second-hand Webley Scott 951, currently for sale for 400 quid. And we're going to try and remove some of the less charming parts and try and actually improve it and see if it is possible with minimal work, using hand tools only-ish, try and make this gun a better gun. There's a lot of flaws, you know, the whole stock design's a bit curvy. You can see it's been knocked out quite quickly and cheaply. There's a lack of style in the stock and a lack of quality finish. The pad's cheap and horrible. It balances pretty nastily. I have shot this, as you can see. And to be fair, it took a lot of work, but it was quite shootable. It's multi-choke, you know, pretty much. It's a nice 30-inch multi-choke sporter. So we're going to turn this into a sporting shotgun of a little bit more class. Without further ado, we're going to start with the stock. So let's pop her apart. Put these somewhere safe. So stock, like any good design, anything sleek, is all about lines. Good straight lines make a beautiful stock, generally speaking. The curves in the right place, but all straight lines, aka that, and generally the sides of the gun should be straight, not roach bellied, not nasty. And if we hold a ruler against this, we can see you've got a hell of a rise in the middle there. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and eliminate those before we go any further. Something we'll also notice with this stock, if you look, we don't even have to look that closely, you can see still a lot of grip marks in, and you'll see this with a lot of cheaper guns if you pay close enough attention. This one's especially bad, but there is significantly better. But you can still see it. They don't take them down through the grits enough. They then don't really feel the grain. They only put a quick oil finish on, so we're going to move into that after. But first, we're going to work on the shape and style. However, before we do any of that, we're going to rough on a new pad, because this pad, as practical as it is, it looks cheap and looks out of date. So we're going to put a new pad on there now. Let me get the relevant tools to take that off. I've been through a lot of pads, choices for this, and you know, we fit an awful lot of different pads. And actually, me and Dan, whilst talking about the whole concept of this, actually decided we were going to put on something a little bit special. I say special, nothing too complex. Obviously time is of the essence, and luckily I've put a bit of overtime to actually get on top of our current in-house repairs so that we got time to do this. We're going to fit this. This is kind of like a Silver's pad, but it's not. It's a proper old style English game pad. I understand this is a sporting shotgun, but this is a very good sporting pad, apart from the fact that it's a beautiful colour. As you can see, you've got a relative amount of recoil absorption, a smooth finish, and that's pretty much the perfect recipe for a sporting pad. Just in this case, it's a pretty colour, so we're going to fit that. Now, my presumption is, and when fitting these pads, we're going to get your two holes, and you make sure your holes line up, which they're ever so slightly out, which is going to save me an awful lot of hassle. So I'm going to reuse these screws because I'm tight. And the whole project here is designed to be on a bit of a budget, right? So let's pull these. And even the screws they use are pretty cheap, but you know, they can be said for all cheap guns. It's not just the Webley 951. This, you can keep the spare pad put back on, however it won't fit after we've refinished, because we are going to finish this pad into the wood, aka we are going to touch the wood when we grind down, and so on and so forth. So let's throw that away into a box for safekeeping, because you know, I'm a hoarder. Alright, as you can see, this pad is pre-done for a hole. What I do like to do with these, however, is actually slightly open up these holes. So what you need is a scalpel. Get a scalpel, dip it in a little bit of lubricant, push it in the hole, and all you're doing is just going to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to pushing the hole in, or else you can have a mild tendency to tear, even if you lube right. It doesn't take anything just to put a mild cut on it. I'll do this with all guns, but Certainly with older style pads like this, I don't think it hurts. Besides, I mean, aesthetically you can't even see the cut. And that's as simple as that. All we have done is open it enough there. So let's shove her on, see how we go. So you can never be too shy with lubricant, either with lubing the screws in the holes or into the pad or anywhere really. You don't be afraid of over lubricating when it comes to pad fitting. It might take you a little bit longer, but in terms of clean up, but that doesn't really matter. So yeah, silicone oil works quite well as well, but silicone based grease is right there. Silicone oil is downstairs. Let's shove her on, see how she goes. Some pads need flattening off, so you need to grind them on a flat plate on the bottom because they will be uneven. Servitellis or Servolettis are the case in point of that. Same with Packmeyers. Actually these, should we just keep calling them Silver's copies? These beautiful red pads. Are pretty good out the box. What you're looking for is a good fit and finish around the edge. So what you're looking for is no big gaps or anything to make sure the grinds match. Actually, I did say I'm going to start on the wood. We're not. We're going to go straight into the action, because once I finish this to the wood, I'm not going to be keen to take it off. The action. Essentially all we're going to work on is the smoothness of the safety catch and the trigger pulls, and that's as simple as that. So let me pull this pad back off. Now that that's a mild improvement. Before I do anything, I will just grind this down quickly. I'm going to use that on a belt grinder right now. Right, so let's use the right bit, obviously. I spent a lot of years using one of these and never putting things back in the box, and then subsequently having multiple parts, usually missing the 10s, 12s and 13s, which are the most popular size heads for guns. So somewhere in this workshop, because I mean I haven't taken them home or anything, there is 10s, 12s and 13 sockets from many bits. However, this kit I'm looking after, and I still am looking after. So remove your stock bolt. In reality, for a couple of quid you could replace this with a much better quality stock bolt, but that's utterly semantical. Pull this off and have a look. So looking inside the Webley 951, you can see it is a copy of not much. It is a fairly honest, cheap gun, and that sounds very strange, but there's a lot of guns, cheaper guns out there that try and copy other things. This, they've taken the very basic principles of a shotgun, a couple of top hanging sears. It's almost like a Browning-esque thing. It's almost Browning-esque. In fact, I think the design spec of this whole gun was kind of Maruku-y. Hence the dimensions were almost Maruku-y. The grip size is fairly Maruku-y because the importer shoots a Maruku himself. So you can even see the engraving pattern is kind of Maruku-y. However, Browning Marukus do have a terrible reputation for their triggers, and as such this kind of follows suit. Firstly, you get quite a lot of pickup there. There's going to be almost nothing I can do about that initial pickup in reality. I mean, there is minimal bits, but without getting too major. We're talking about home grade stuff here. I don't want to be getting anybody in danger. So you have a large amount of pickup, and then you have quite a long spongy trigger pull. In fact, I'm going to get the gauge out here. £4, but it's not a nice £4, and just under £4, but they are, generally speaking, pretty unpleasant. So let's recock those. I think a lot about certainly shotgun triggers is more feel than weight. So a crisp £8 trigger actually isn't too bad. A nasty £4 trigger is pretty horrific. You know, there's a lot of creep there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Actually, I'm not going to pull the safety out quite yet. I'm going to, well, I'm going to set it off and I'll pull out these two top hanging sears and see what condition they're in. Don't dry fire guns, obviously that's bad, but I have 2 spare firing pins here that I'm probably going to put in. We'll get into that. So that comes out, and these pop out also, as you can see. And if we have a little look at them, they are a little bit on the rough side. So what we're going to look to do is actually polish up these faces. What we're also going to do is going to pull out these tumblers, have a little look at them as well, and just see if we can make that engagement a little bit more pleasant. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do one at a time. To the vise. So what you're not looking to do here is to reshape this sear in any particular way. Actually, because that can lead to future complications, all you're looking to do is polish the engagements between them. So a little bit of 1200 grit and a stiff metal ruler. What you want to do is place it on the inside of that sear edge and just take off any burrs and any roughness. And to be fair, if you've got good eyes, you'll be able to see with your eyes. If you don't, get yourself a glass, you should be able to see any roughness disappearing with each stroke. Try and keep it even so you don't get over wear. Alright, now it's quite shiny. So as you can see on the inside there, possibly, should have probably shown you before, it was quite rough, it's now quite smooth. I think the thing to do is to fit it back in the gun and never take off too much, as a big rule. It takes nothing to refit, test, take it out. Because, you know, nobody wants a gun that goes boom! That's bad. I'll put that back in its hole. I say quite simply, but they never go in quite as simply as you hope. Very good. There we go. That's Sear 1 complete. Let's pop Sear 2 out and have a little rummage, shall we? As you can see, well, you can see really easily. Actually, you can see the points of wear on here. You can see there's a slight burr on this side. I say really easily. I can see really easily. Let me go file that off. I'm just going to put a little bit more grease on the spring as well. There's an awful lot of faults you could find in this gun, to be fair, if you really tried. Most of that being that all of the coil springs in the gun are exactly the same size as the holes, so all of them ride a little bit on the side without the engineering being good enough for that to flow fairly smoothly. Again, if we were really getting into it, you could just take that hole out just a little bit. But you're talking, what's the point? This is where putting in a vise really helps, but the camera's not set up over there. And you just want to make sure they ride up and down with relative ease. Imagine pulling this like a trigger, and you'll be able to feel little points of contact in the spring and along its travel. And actually I did polish the tip ends of both of these ever so slightly. So they're not bad. They're certainly better than what they were. However, before we go any further, I'm going to test them again. A lot of the problem with these cheaper guns is just the complete lack of lubrication of fairly rough parts. But they're still long, they're still not the most pleasant, but that's kind of acceptable. What we're going to look to do now, again, it's not about, what this isn't about is turning this into anything that it's not, because essentially what we're going to have to do is re-harden, re-engineer and do an awful lot of work to the internals of this gun to get it to be as good as we want. We're not going to make a new gun, all we're doing is trying to refine some of the things that we like less. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these hammers out and essentially polish the other half of the sear. Measure that quick, I expect it's going to be exactly the same as it was. Almost identical. I think we lost all of about nothing. So we've got £4, just under 4 and just under, well, just over 3.5 on the second. So we've lost very little. And actually somewhere between 3.5 and £4 is the perfect shotgun trigger. Anyway, I've talked enough, let's get working. What I need is my tooth pullers, eh? So to remove the hammers you need to remove the mainsprings. These are fairly springy, obviously. What I like to do is just have a little divide somewhere in a parts pot and chuck the parts in so you keep your rights from your lefts. A piece of paper with names written on works really well if you really want, but to be fair, there is, in this particular model of gun, no difference between your right and left mainspring. They're identical. The thing is they might have bent. Springs shouldn't bend like that really, but they're fairly cheap mainsprings, like I said. If you really wanted, you could replace these with a better quality spring and a better quality spring guide, and this would certainly make your life no different whatsoever. Right, so we're just looking to remove these ejector cam rods. On certain guns they can be really easy. On this particular gun / model, they're not. I think they actually make the inlet just a little bit too large. So we'll probably reduce that down ever so slightly just for future fun and games. Again, we're going to do one side, and then we're going to go back in and do the other, even though on this particular gun, left and right is identical. So what we're looking to do is again look for the rough edges that's been made in milling, and we're just going to smooth that up, and that will make all of our lives better. Avoid all the front where it actually hits the hammer, because if it works, right?